I always took my suffering silently, especially the unexplained sickness which always followed demonic attacks. I live in Uganda, and it all started on 28th November 2004, just 1 hour to midnight. While walking home after branching off from the main road, I heard footsteps of someone walking behind me, and whoever it was seemed to have been in a hurry. I glanced back and stepped aside to see who it was and let him or her pass as I was in a narrow path. I saw a hazy form which I can't clearly explain here, but then my hair stood on my head like when you encounter something fearful. A cold shiver enveloped me and a gust of chilly wind wrapped my entire body, like I was putting on a cloak. I let out a silent, incoherent scream and ran towards home, which was just nearby. That occurrence signaled the beginning of my suffering till date. Since then, whenever I sleep, I'm woken up by something touching my foot or a feeling of a being lying beside me. In the morning, I find scratches on my body, and at first I thought it was me scratching myself while sleeping at night, so I used to trim my nails. However, the scratches continued. During the attacks, I usually fall in a sort of hypnotizing stance. I can neither move nor make any sound except my feet, which I used to struggle and try to shrug off the being. In the past 2 years, the demon has turned sexual. It would turn in a woman form, hugging me in bed, trying to initiate sexual intimacy. When I wake up, my reproductive organ feels so cold and shrunk. There is a pain also in the pelvic area for most of the day. I've tried all sorts of remedies like blessed water, salt, and various prayers, but none seems to work. Any suggestions on how to get rid of this demon is welcome. I live in Bangladesh. I am an 18 years old guy. I am also an atheist, or what most people would refer as an agnostic. When this story took place, I was 7 years old and in second grade. I lived with my father, mother, and my sister. My father is a teacher at a cadet college, a series of well-known semi-military residential schools in Bangladesh. Back when this incident took place, he worked in Janida Cadet College, Janida, located in southwestern Bangladesh. He was a lecturer there. Back when I lived there, Janida Cadet College was half engulfed into the Sundarbans. Sundarbans is the largest mangrove forest in the world. It is basically a salty swamp. Stories about the supernatural phenomenon inside Sundarbans are widely known in our country. The house we were given by the Cadet College has a history. During the Liberation War of Bangladesh in 1971, Janida Cadet College was an active battlefield and Pakistani soldiers' encampment. They had used some of the residential quarters available at that time to dump the bodies of the people they had massacred. Our house was one of those. They had found 17 bodies in this house. Suspicious things would often happen. Every few weeks, there would be one or more nights when there would be banging and scraping on the doors every few minutes. Deep into the night, there would even be groaning and moaning sounds. My parents always discarded them as the winds. At that time, I did too. But my sister would always get startled when it happened. My sister and I shared a room. My sister was admitted into another cadet college when she was 12. So she went away, leaving me to sleep alone in the room. I was 6 then. One night when I was 7, my parents were out for an office party. I was doing my homework. It was summer, and due to voltage shortage, the fans in the house were spinning slowly. So it was hot inside the house. After finishing my homework, I came outside onto the porch, turning the light of the porch on. Again, due to voltage shortage, the light was dim. So I walked around on the porch for a few moments and remembered that I had left the fan in my room running. As I entered the house, leaving the front door open, I heard something that sounded like distant thunder. I paid little attention as thunderstorms were quite common in the summer in Bangladesh. Thinking back on it now, I should have paid attention. All the windows in the house were open. It took me about 10 seconds to go to my room, turn off the fan and come back. It was when I came back to the threshold of the front door and let my eyes adjust to the dim light outside the darkness beyond. Did I see the creature just at the edge of the porch? He stood bipedal like a human. If you told me to guess, I would say it was 7 to 8 feet in height. His body was covered in what looked like black fur. His head was that of a dog. I cannot tell you which breed, but one with a long face and large pointy ears. It had yellow eyes. We stared at each other for a while as it bared its pointy teeth a little and made that sound that I thought was distant thunder. I unfroze and immediately closed and bolted the door. Went to the kitchen and turned up all the stoves. Then I grabbed the copy of the Quran that we had and hid in the cupboard. My parents had to bang on the door for 15 long minutes when they came back. Again, I was 7. I might have seen one thing and thought another. It could have been a case of pareidolia. There are Hulok gibbons in Sundarbans. They have black fur, but I cannot imagine one being so large and having a canine face. Then again, I was scared, and that can affect my perception, or someone might have been playing a prank on me. We lived in that house for 3 more years. The rest of the paranormal activity went on normally, but they affected me differently after the Dogman. I didn't suddenly start being terrified of them, but I was more wary. Something else happened in the meantime to both me and my sister. I will not be sharing that experience right now as it bothers my sister quite a lot. What do you think it was, and what do you think would have happened if I didn't bolt that door? For those that know Johannesburg, Florida, there are a lot of townhouses and complexes that are rather old. In saying that, there are people that live there for a long time and died there as well. My brother, after just getting married, bought a 2-bedroom flat in Florida. It was a beautiful flat but was always cold, even in summer. One day he called me before the weekend and asked me to come and spend the weekend over to help him with something. I gladly accepted because I liked spending time with him and his wife and 2-year-old daughter. He had his firstborn daughter at the time, so as I got there, I took my stuff to my niece's bedroom, assuming that I would be sleeping in her room. I thought that they had moved their belongings to the child's bedroom and moved their stuff to the main bedroom. I asked them about it and they nervously said that he needed me to help him move the furniture from room to room. So I thought nothing of it and settled in. Night came and after watching movies with them, we all headed to sleep. At the time, there was an instant messaging application called Mixit and I was chatting for about an hour or so and decided to log off. I placed my phone under my pillow and laid it on my right side. A few minutes passed and I felt my head going down on the pillow as if something was putting pressure down on the pillow in front of my face. I was so scared that I couldn't even open my eyes. I don't know how I ended up falling asleep after that, but the next morning I remembered what had happened. I explained to my brother what had happened and he called his wife and sat down. And that was when he told me that I just confirmed that there was something and they were not going crazy. He said that there was an old man in that room and who had convinced my niece to climb on a ladder and jump through the window. My sister-in-law got there just in time to catch her before she almost jumped to her death. After that, she asked her what she was trying to do and my niece told my mom that it was the old man that had told her to do so. And that's how they moved their stuff into the other room. Sometimes, after removing the batteries from toys, they still hear the toys making sounds in the closet or wardrobe. They stayed there for 2 to 3 years until they decided to move out and buy a house in Triumph, Sophia Town, where some strange things are happening as well. But that's a story for another time. My husband and I moved into a town in Simonstown, Western Cape, South Africa in 2011. He worked abroad and I was alone at home most of the time. Thinking back on visiting the house the first time with the estate agent, I should have trusted my sixth sense and walked out the door then and there. Now, this is a double-story old home, renovated and gorgeous. It has a long flight of steps that lead up to the house from the street. And it also had a large veranda and double doors leading into the entrance hall. On the left is the living room, and on the right is the entrance to the dining room and the kitchen. From the entrance is a flight of steps leading to 3 bedrooms with an open balcony looking down into the living room. I love the open spaces, the wooden staircases, and the farm-style kitchen. It truly is a very beautiful house and very cozy. This house was always very cold inside, and this was regardless of the fact that it has a very large sunny windows. I remember dreading having to use the stairs. It always felt like someone was walking behind you, and if you were in the living room, it always felt like someone was watching you from the stairs. Now, I don't get spooked easily and actually do not believe in ghosts, but my experience in this house have always haunted me because there was no logic to our experiences there. The day we moved in, my hubby was in South Africa and we had a couple of people helping us move in. I was in the main bedroom and clearly heard a woman's voice saying something in French, or what sounded like French. It sounded like she was right next to me and I was alone in the room. I walked to the door, looked up and down the hallway. There was no one else upstairs at the time. And so I decided that it was my imagination and then went downstairs. But unfortunately, I was wrong because we would hear her talk often during our stay. We went to bed late that evening, but my hubby woke up at 4 a.m. to the sound of running water. He investigated but could not find the source. While he was walking around the house, he heard a woman's voice say something in what sounded like French. I could not believe when he told me about it, since I didn't mention my experience from earlier that day with him. And it confirmed my experience, and that thought was scary. He was walking down the stairs and clearly heard this voice from the living room. Upon investigation, there was no one there. The house is not close to neighbors, so we didn't know what to make of it. And then 2 weeks later, I was home alone. Hubby was back in Dubai. I slept with the lights on all the time for the very first time in my life at the age of 36. We had an alarm system. I often heard footsteps in the house, and our 2 dogs would react to this by barking and investigating. But there was never a source, and the alarm would not pick up any intruders or movements in the house. Our dogs would often sit in the living room with me and start barking at the stairs or refuse to go downstairs with us. They were annoyed and behaved out of character often while we lived there. My husband and I woke up a couple of times because it felt like someone was watching us, or we could hear a loud thump coming from the kitchen. The source is still a mystery to us. I had guests one evening. We were all sitting at the dining room table having dinner when someone walked past the entrance of the living room. Towards the stairs, my hubby and a friend investigated but could not find anyone. We all saw this. This happened many times during our time in this house. On a certain day again, I was home alone watching TV one evening and saw someone walking by the entrance of the dining room. My dog started barking. I was terrified and pushed the panic button on my alarm. The alarm company came out but found no one. Also, my husband was cooking supper one afternoon. His back turned to the dining room. Someone walked in and stood right behind him. He thought it was me, but when he turned around to see why I wasn't answering him, he immediately found out that there was no one there. I was outside. We would often find water puddles in the house but could not explain where they came from. I also often experienced tapping on my shoulder. I thought it could be a muscle spasm, but never had them before or after we moved out. We lived in this house for 8 months. The constant stress, the uneasy feeling, the fear and the lack of sleep eventually got the better of me and we moved out. We had many strange experiences there. I just happened to mention just a few. It was only after we moved out and lived in a normal house again that we realized just how bizarre this all was. Looking back, I wouldn't go into this house again and left some of my things behind, but didn't have the nerve to go back to get it. Till this day, this house is often empty or has new tenants every few months. Assalamu alaikum. I live in Pakistan. My father and I live in a house that belonged to my grandfather, but before that it belonged to his grandfather, so this was a pretty old house. But it was rebuilt by my father in the 90s, and being so old, there also have been some sudden deaths, including children. As of now, we are 5 family members and I'm the youngest of all. I've always been a firm believer in the paranormal due to some personal experiences of my childhood. The experiences I'm going to share today happened in probably January or February 2022. This was now the second time. It all happened around 3 a.m. that night. I was sleeping when I suddenly woke up, only to see a tall black thing standing near my bed on the side of my feet. It was tall, thin, and very black. And I don't know how, but I knew it was a male. It had white holes where the eyes were supposed to be. I have a small blue bulb on in my room at night whose light is enough to make out everything in the room. But this thing was so dark that I couldn't see anything except for its outline. I tried my best to free myself from the bed, but it didn't help. As the dark figure was standing and looking at me, there were different voices going on in my head. I don't remember the exact words, but they told me that this thing meant harm to me. Then I started reciting in my heart the Ayatul Kursi, which is a verse from the Holy Quran. And then I don't remember what happened next, but I think I just blacked out because later when I woke up, that thing was not anywhere in the room and all was normal. And I felt that it was just a dream. I couldn't believe it, but I had to face the fact that I had just gone through a terrifying sleep paralysis. I'm not sure if I saw it in real life or dreamt about it, but the fear was real. And I had never seen a ghost before. In the morning, I told Mama about it and she believed me but couldn't do anything. Although I didn't tell her about the voices that wanted to harm me. After a few days, I completely forgot about it and I just shrugged it off. And after that night, I recited a set of prayers so that I wouldn't be haunted at night. And thankfully, it had stopped. But the reason I'm sharing this experience is because a few days ago I read a story from somewhere else which was very similar to my experience, and that was the time I remembered my experience and those voices that told me that the thing was going to hurt me. I just feel sickened when I think about it. I've not told it to anyone, but I want your thoughts on this. Is it possible that this creature was not evil but something less threatening? I've been very disturbed ever since.